Good evening, friends. Welcome to the India Power Talk. As you know, India Power Talk is an initiative wherein we invite international thought leaders and domain experts to create an easily accessible digital reservoir of their insights, experiences, and strategies on the economy. Today, I am going to focus on business between UK and India and the opportunities in the near future. And to talk on the diverse opportunities and some of the challenges for business between UK and India, we have someone who has traveled almost 250 times in India, a highly successful entrepreneur, author, and business coach, Roy Newey. Mr. Newey, during our discussions, you said you have visited India over 250 times. May I ask you to begin by telling us and giving us an overview of your work during these visits and what truly really impressed you?
So I think when I first came to India, three things that jumped out at me. Number one, there was a really clear shared objective and vision as to what India wanted to do in respect of its skilling of the nation and particularly of its young people. There was also a personal commitment from many of the political leaders, the business leaders, and also some real heroes that I met from the third sector who wanted to come together and put aside their differences and align against that single shared vision to skill India. And finally, there was an understanding and an appreciation and a dawning in people's minds about the energy that can be released in communities and young people when we give people the skills and the pathway to their careers and the ability to have financial success in their lives. That releasing of energy becomes quite contagious. And I was delighted to be part of that journey.
Mr. Devi, firstly, I must sincerely thank you for your really valuable time and efforts and the kind services that you have offered to my country. Whether there was any disappointment to you?
The disappointment is, unfortunately, that because of the numbers involved in India, that more has not been achieved. I also felt that it was sad for me that in many parts of India, there were some people who were left outside of that economic bubble. And I think the final thing would be that employers still, and you'll recognize this being a lawyer, Nitin, that employers still get wrapped in the red tape that actually prevent them from doing the thing which they want to naturally do, which is to provide skills for their staff. But the paraphernalia of government can sometimes smother that drive and that spirit.
I mean, could you tell us about the work that was done by JETCO and under your leadership in India?
So JETCO splits into a number of different themes, and the 5 years that I was the chairman of one of those streams was there was 4 streams, and I was responsible for chairing the education and skills initiatives. So that's the bringing together of the UK and India at every level of society. So the interconnection of government, the civil servants, the business leaders, the university leaders, the leaders of further education, and the leaders of the private sector. It was to bring all of those together and to better understand each other's needs, to understand the gaps and the opportunities, and to understand how we could work together in a cohesive way for the benefit of the people of India. So for in the UK, this is a journey that we'd been on for a number of years already. And so there were a number of developments and innovations that were sat on the shelves of UK skills providers. And they were entirely applicable when setting the recontextualization of India to be a benefit for India, and therefore shortening the learning curve, preventing the need for wheels to be reinvented. And this was a great opportunity for the UK to pass on that work that had already been done to partners in India who were just starting out on that journey. So lots of sharing of best practice, lots of study tours, lots of intercollaborations between universities and colleges, lots of private sector workers, and it was a great opportunity to collaborate and share the journey that we'd been on in the UK with India.
Given the background of the relation between UK and India, how do you really see the future business relationship, and what's the potential according to you?
What a strange year 2020 is. You know, we have obviously the COVID issue, which we're all wrestling with, and the ramifications in all areas of our lives that we're dealing with. But of course, here in the UK, we have an initial layer and that is Brexit. That's the UK's decision to exit from its trading relationship with the largest trading partner in the world, Europe. And so that gives us lots of new opportunities. We had sleepwalked into a relationship with Europe, and therefore we've done away with tariffs and trade barriers and things. And now, of course, we're all back to square one, where we have to resurrect all the trade barriers. So we have to reinsert all the tariffs, and we have to negotiate all the different trade agreements from scratch. And of course, we've done it at a time of political heightened uncertainty. And so I think for the UK and for India, there's great opportunities as we exit that huge trading relationship we have for the UK to benefit from trade with India, for Indian companies and Indian investors and UK companies and UK investors to sit down and work out what's the new opportunities that we've got here for the UK and India to work together. I think, and finally, Nitin, one thing that is increasingly impacting on our world, and we see it here today with ourselves, is the use of digitization. You know, to give it a brand, Zoom, the world of Zoom. I no longer need to go to Manchester to travel to Heathrow to come to arrive in Delhi, transfer. Now I can pick up a Zoom call with Nitin, and we can have this conversation. And so trade and deals and the effectiveness and the swiftness in which they can be done with the electronic and digital aids can be much faster. And I think that's going to impact on our world.
According to you, what are the sectors where we really could collaborate more or do more business?
I suppose it's easier for me to identify those sectors where we won't be able to affect. In my time in India, obviously I was focused on education and skills. That took me into engineering, light engineering and heavy engineering, agriculture. I think agriculture is a huge opportunity for the UK to purchase goods from India that will really bring alive some of those rural areas of India. So I think there are lots and lots of opportunities. It's hard to think of areas where we won't be aligned.
What would be your advice to these small entrepreneurs in India? I mean, is there an opportunity for them to come and collaborate with multiple ventures in UK or for that matter in any European country?
Well, one of the things that I think is an opportunity in the future, a small practical idea, is that you and I have been able to collaborate today using Zoom. It costs virtually nothing to be able to collaborate using Zoom. And an awful lot can be achieved in the less than an hour that we've been speaking today. I think there's a whole raft of UK employers who have been on their own journey of development who would really relish and love the opportunity to mentor SMEs free of charge in India.
Okay.
And maybe it's just an hour a month, and maybe it's a short phone call like this, where each side could collaborate and could exchange ideas and information in a completely non-competitive way. But I sense as those relationships have developed, and as people learn to like each other, and the trust develops, then trade will flow between the two countries because we put both sides together. And my whole life has been dedicated to putting two sides together opposite a table and brokering a relationship that builds trust. And on trust, we can build trade.
So let's move to skills development by the Commonwealth program under your leadership again. And could you elaborate, because that's very critical work, and that's a very, very heavy work that you have done. So could you explain or could you elaborate on the work that was done under the Commonwealth program?
Yes. So I think that the issue with the Commonwealth is there are 56 countries in the Commonwealth. From the size of India, obviously the largest country in the Commonwealth, to tiny islands in the Caribbean, populations of merely a couple of thousand. And so again, the UK had tended to first foot many of those development needs within vocational skills area as we addressed our own issues and agenda and the problems that we had with young people and people no longer having the skills and capability to do the artisan work that was necessary to have a thriving economy. And so I think one of the things that we did was we tried to calibrate where on the journey was each of those 56 countries, and whoever was in front of this person, well, you're a great ally to be able to help this country. And actually don't feel bad about that because you've got great stuff here that you can help to train this country. And the agenda of developing skills is common. The culture, the language, the currency, the religion, that they might all be different. Those are the various factors. But actually, the common threads of how do we get young people engaged and give them the skills that give them the confidence and self-esteem to be able to walk towards careers and look after themselves and their families, those themes are all similar and in all countries. And in fact, I would sometimes get picked up on my belief that there was a great similarity between Jamaica and India. People say, well, how on earth can there possibly be a similarity? But if you've got young people, young spirit, willing hands, a set of standards, a set of certifications, and a way to give them the confidence and competency to go to work and earn a living, contribute to their economy, they were similar. So my job was really to bring together the similarities of the Commonwealth and to ensure that best practice was served across all nations.
Any highlight of during your leadership of any of the program that you would like to share with us?
Actually, India travels very well, doesn't it?
Yes.
And you're taking your skills development around the world much better than the UK. And so it was those opportunities to meet and work with Indians in different countries in different contexts, but on that shared agenda that excited me.
Across the globe, you will find a lot of young and committed, young Indians who want to come back and want to commit to India, and this is done. They are doing just selflessly. Honestly, they have. I know for a fact there are a lot of people in the US, in Canada, in Japan, who have given up their very lucrative careers, and they have come back and they have dedicated themselves to. They have committed themselves to the next generation. We have 1.3 billion population, and majority of which are young. By 2030, I guess we will be the youngest populated country. What do you think should be our vision to shape the skill strategy of these young people? Because why I'm saying this, because there's always a gap between what is the demand in the market versus what is being taught to the young population. So how do we really bridge up this gap, and what should be our vision to match that gap?
The demand and supply mechanisms in skills is always misaligned. The market changes very quickly. Customers' needs change. Science moves on. Employers' needs change. And so they suddenly have a huge surge in a demand for a particular type of worker. And yet the skills providers, well, it takes them 2 years to notice that the market's changed. Yes. Then it takes them 2 or 3 years to develop the training materials. Then it takes them 2 or 3 years to train the people to meet the market need. So they are 5 to 7 years behind, lagging what the actual need in the market is, which leads to great frustrations on behalf of the employers. It leads to great disappointment for the individuals of the trainees, because they train for 2 years with a skill, they spend their family's money, they get their qualification, and then they find there are no jobs for that skill because the market has moved on. But you've got to keep trying to bring these two together, and it's a constant journey.
Yes.
And one of the things that I did in the UK when I worked with the UK government was we actually said to the skills providers, we're going to pay you for the skills training that you're doing once this individual has secured a job using those skills in the jobs market and has been in that job for 12 months.
I see.
And so this meant instead of the skills provider being able to train people and get the cash off the government or off the individual there and then disperse them into a holding pen here to see if they could use those skills to get a job, or getting a skill but actually ending up working at McDonald's, which is not a bad job. Working at McDonald's is fine. But if you've got a computer science qualification and you end up working on the counter service, you've not utilized the skills investment that you've made. So what we did was we said to the skills providers, we're going to give you a small amount of money to have the person, but the large payment will come 1 year down the line once you can demonstrate that that person has transferred into the labor market.
I see.
And had a job which is utilizing that skill. And in the UK, that led to a huge transformation, because of course these people get no money for 2 years. And these were billions and billions of pounds that we had to switch the investment, because otherwise we were just paying people to train people for jobs that didn't exist.
I see. Correct. One of the major challenges what education system in India is facing is the industry academia connect. It's not very easy to connect the industry with the academia, because academicians will always fall behind. Do you have any practical solution for that, if I may ask you?
I think all tenureship for academics should be only on the basis of they participate in at least 1 year's, actual work occupation in every 5 years.
Mhm.
Let's
In the
get all
industry,
these,
in the
yeah, get,
industry.
yeah. So within every 5 years of employment in the academic institutions, they have to serve one of those 5 years doing a job.
In the academic industry.
Second, and then secondly, let's get as many people from the world of business to get their employers to release them for 1 year so that they can work in industry.
I think that
And
could be, Mr. Davis, that is possible. Getting people from industry into the academics is possible, but making academic person to go to industry may not be easy.
so we've got to get a vocational element into the academic skills that prepares people for the world of work.
No, no. See,
Numerous.
I'll tell you. Also, it has its own challenges. Whilst it is very easy for us to say that why don't from within 5 years, 1 year from an industry must go spend in academics. But say take an example of a legal profession or a medical profession. For someone to expect to leave his profession for 1 year and go into academics, he will be out of the practice. He will be out of the business. It's a difficult call.
It's a difficult call, but the option is we just leave it. We leave money being wasted, governments being criticised, employers being frustrated, and young people being abused. We could just leave it as it is.
No, I think
But you have a better solution.
no, there is
But what's your solution?
but this solution is a wonderful solution. I fully appreciate and I really agree with you that more than ideally academics should go to industry also, but this can be done on a part-time basis to begin with. So at least nobody is disturbed in their own way. But there has to be a serious commitment to this, to my mind, and it's a very valid solution. See, we have, I have really, I have recently started the National Education 2020 summit to get the universities together to have a debate on a new education policy, and I'm going to make this suggestion to them that why don't we recommend in some industry 1 year of the industry to work in the academic and academics to work industry. This is a very good suggestion. Okay, now coming to your skills agenda, do you feel it has not been resolved? Any skill agenda not resolved?
Red tape. But I think this isn't an Indian skills problem. I think this is an Indian problem. But the more red tape and the more you conflusticate the system, the slower it will go. The next thing is employer engagement. I think we've got to continually work on employer engagement, not just from the parties and the Tatas and the large companies, but in India, we didn't really manage to get the mid-range employers involved. Those people employing 50, 60, 100 people. The corporates came on board. They were fantastic. But the mid-range, we didn't really sort that. And finally, I think the use of digital technology gives us an opportunity to not sheep dip people, but to inspire and engage with young people so that they find ways of using digital technology to gain the skills that they need. And there's so many innovations in that area.
Right. In fact, I must say that your point on red tape is very valid. But I must say that look, very recently, the government of India has announced a new education policy, and it does give a lot of freedom to the universities and institutions to evolve their own curriculum, evolve their own programs, and there is no red tape in that. So I guess a lot of things that you mentioned will be addressed under the new education policy. How do you see India-UK business developing, and what could be done really to develop the India-UK business?
So we have a great history of working together, the UK and India. We really value and appreciate working alongside Indian counterparts in the UK. And I think that once we've got Brexit out of the way, and once we understand what the new post-COVID world looks like, I believe there's lots of opportunities for us to come together and collaborate in ways which will really turn people's heads. There's great creativity and great innovation and great skills in India. But on every visit that I made, of all those 250 visits I made to India, I always learned something from India. There's always something I learned that I was able to take back to my business in the UK or one of the other countries where I operate in the world. So we have so much as English people, British people, to learn from you in India. And if we put those two parts together, I think we can do some really exciting stuff in the future.
Okay, I would like to, go now, Mr. Newey, to your book, Ready, Get, Set, Grow. Could you talk about your book? Because I'm really
Okay.
curious to understand more about the book.
Okay. So I spent 40 years growing my own business, and I grew it at an accelerated rate. So I went from £3 million a year to £180 million a year, and we opened it in 15 countries around the world. And we went from 65 staff to 5,000 staff. And
Mhm.
then I was able to sell that business in 2015. And what I realized is that there's a way of doing it. There's a simple system that can be developed by all businesses to accelerate the growth of their companies. Number one, defend the core. Number two, look for adjacent markets. Number three, then go for the BHAGs. And number four, bring it all back together and start the process again. And so that's the book, Ready, Set, Grow. And you, Nitan, will be delighted to know it's available on Amazon.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So there you go.
Great. Uh, Before I really close, what would be your message to India?
Incredible India, I believe, is an understatement.
Mhm.
Every time I think of India, my head just says, wow. I mean, you are a fantastic group of people. You've got fantastic opportunities in front of you and so much power and energy and an ability to solve not just your problems, but to be part of solving the world's problems. And therefore, my final thoughts are what really makes me feel great about India? It's the people, it's your commitment to family, your industriousness, your sense of endeavor, and the skills and education can fire all of that so that you move forward with tremendous success. And I really wish India the most wonderful future, as long as we keep investing in the young people.
You're absolutely right. You're bang on point, Mr. Navy, and I really thank you for that. Mr. Navy, thank you very much for your valuable time, insights, and experience.